Hey everyone, and welcome to the weekly podcast with Alexander and Ava.
All right, so today we're going to be taking a deep dive into Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Yeah.
Using all your sources, we'll explore this idea of how making small changes can lead to big results in our lives.
Right.
Like that idea that just getting 1% better each day can make you like 37 times better after a year.
Yeah, it's a really captivating concept. And
Right.
what I think is so fascinating is that Clear doesn't just like dangle that idea in front of us.
Yeah.
He actually gives us a framework that we can use, the 4 laws of behavior change, to really achieve those incremental gains.
So let's unpack that framework a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of our listeners are already familiar with the book.
Sure.
But I think we can go a bit deeper than just like listing out the 4 laws, like
Yeah.
cue, craving, response, reward.
Absolutely. Yeah, let's take a deeper dive.
Right.
So let's say you're trying to build a new habit, like writing every morning.
Okay.
The cue could be something as simple as placing your notebook and pen on your desk the night before.
Right.
But there's a deeper layer to this.
Yeah.
Why does this visual cue even work?
Tell me why.
Well, research shows that our brains are actually wired to conserve energy, right?
Okay.
Habits at their core are really just automated behaviors that free up mental bandwidth. So that visual cue that you set up the night before
Okay.
acts as a shortcut, right? It triggers this pre-programmed sequence in your brain.
Yeah.
And so you don't even have to expend the mental energy deciding to write.
Okay.
That cue sets the wheels in motion for you.
It's like our brains are just looking for those patterns.
Yeah.
And that notebook becomes the signal
Okay.
to kickstart that writing habit.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got the cue, we've got the craving. I know Clear talks about making habits attractive, but like,
Right.
how do we actually cultivate that craving?
So think about the underlying motivation for your habit.
Okay.
So maybe you crave the feeling of accomplishment that comes with finishing a writing session. Or maybe you crave the creative outlet it provides.
Yeah.
So to make the habit attractive, you need to tap into those positive feelings and make them really salient.
It's like we're priming our brains to anticipate that reward.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got the cue, we've got the craving.
Yeah.
What comes next in this habit loop?
All right, so that brings us to the response,
Okay.
the actual action of writing.
Right.
And this is where I think Clear's 2-minute rule really comes into play.
Okay.
Because he found that starting small,
Yeah.
even ridiculously small, can really help you overcome that initial inertia. So instead of like pressuring yourself to write an entire chapter,
Right.
you just commit to writing 1 sentence.
Okay.
It's about making that barrier to entry so low that it's almost impossible to say no.
Yeah. I love the 2-minute rule. It makes it seem so much less daunting than setting these huge goals.
Yeah?
But doesn't that just lead to a bunch of unfinished projects?
Right.
Like, do we just write 1 sentence and call it a day?
So that's where the power of momentum comes in.
Okay.
Once you've taken that initial action,
Right.
you're actually much more likely to continue. It's like pushing a really heavy object.
Yeah.
The hardest part is getting it moving.
Okay.
Once it's rolling,
Yeah.
it takes much less effort to keep it going.
So the 2-minute rule is like that initial push
Exactly.
to get the habit rolling.
Yes.
And once we've got the momentum, we're more likely to keep going.
Exactly.
Okay.
So as you experience these small wins,
Right.
you reinforce the reward stage of the loop. That feeling of accomplishment,
Right.
even from just writing 1 sentence, triggers a release of dopamine in your brain.
Okay.
And that dopamine hit reinforces the entire habit loop,
Yeah.
making you much more likely to repeat the behavior in the future.
So it's this like positive feedback loop
Yeah.
where the reward fuels the craving,
Exactly.
which drives the response.
Yeah.
Okay, but what about breaking bad habits?
Right.
Is it just a matter of reversing the process?
In essence, yes. You make the bad habit invisible by removing the cues.
Right.
You make it unattractive by highlighting its negative consequences.
Okay.
You make it difficult by increasing the effort required. And you make it unsatisfying by minimizing the reward.
So if I'm trying to break the habit of checking my phone first thing in the morning, I could start by like leaving my phone in another room overnight.
Exactly.
So I don't see it.
You're removing the visual cue,
Yeah.
making it more difficult to engage in that habit.
Right.
And you could even unreward the habit by using an app that blocks social media for a certain period of time.
So we're like rewiring our brains
Yeah,
to disassociate those actions with any pleasure or reward.
exactly.
But let's be honest, sometimes willpower just isn't enough. Are there any other strategies that we can use
Right.
to really make those changes stick?
One of the most effective strategies is what Clear calls habit stacking.
Oh, okay.
This is where you link a new habit to an existing one.
Yeah, I've heard of this. Like we're piggybacking off an established routine.
Exactly. So, for example, after I brush my teeth,
Okay.
I will meditate for 2 minutes.
Right.
So by linking that new habit to something you already do consistently,
Right.
you're essentially outsourcing the willpower.
Yeah.
Your brain is already wired to brush your teeth. You're just adding a new step to that existing sequence.
Okay, cool.
Right. And the beauty of habit stacking is you can create these elaborate chains of positive behaviors.
Right.
Right. So for example, like after I meditate, I will write in my journal for 5 minutes. After I journal, I'll stretch for 10 minutes. You're essentially building this like scaffolding for a more productive and fulfilling day.
It's amazing how those small interconnected habits can just have this huge ripple effect.
Yeah.
But one of the most intriguing things I found about Atomic Habits is this idea of identity shift.
Right.
It's not just about changing our actions, but it's about changing like who we believe we are at our core.
That's where the real magic happens, right?
Yeah, but like how do we actually do that?
Yeah.
It just seems like such an abstract concept.
Well, let's think about someone who sees themselves as a healthy person.
Okay.
They don't just like occasionally eat a salad and go for a run.
Right.
Their entire lifestyle revolves around health and wellness. Their food choices, their exercise routine, their sleep habits, even like their social circle.
Right.
It all aligns with that core identity.
So it's not about forcing ourselves to do things we don't like.
Yeah.
It's about becoming the type of person who just naturally does those things.
Exactly.
Okay.
And that's where the power of small wins comes into play again.
Right.
Every time you make a choice that aligns with your desired identity, even if it's something small like choosing a piece of fruit over a cookie,
Okay.
you're reinforcing that belief.
Yeah.
You're telling yourself, this is who I am, this is what I do.
It's like we're casting votes for our future selves with every decision we make.
I love that analogy.
Right?
And those votes accumulate over time. The more you act in alignment with that desired identity, the stronger that belief becomes.
Yeah.
And the easier it is to maintain those habits.
It's such a powerful reminder that we're not stuck with our current habits.
Yeah.
We can actually shape our identities
Absolutely.
with these small choices we make.
And that brings us to another important concept in Atomic Habits, which is the growth mindset.
Okay, I've heard of the growth mindset before.
Yeah.
But how does it apply to habit formation?
Well, when we adopt a growth mindset, we view setbacks not as failures,
Okay.
but as opportunities for learning and growth.
Okay.
We understand that slip-ups are inevitable on the journey to self-improvement,
Right.
and we use them to gather data and refine our approach.
So instead of beating ourselves up when we don't do something perfectly, we're looking at what we can learn from this.
Exactly.
How can we improve going forward?
And that resilience, that willingness to experiment and iterate is essential for long-term success. It's what separates those who achieve lasting change
Right.
from those who give up at the first sign of difficulty.
It's like we're scientists of our own habits.
Yeah.
Constantly testing and tweaking things until we find something that works.
That's a great way to put it.
So we become more attuned to our own habits.
Yeah.
We start to notice those cues and cravings that trigger our behavior. We're just more mindful of the choices we make.
Exactly.
And that allows us to actually make changes. Okay, this is all starting to make sense now. It's not about striving for perfection or like these overnight transformations. It's about embracing the process.
Absolutely.
And just focusing on those small, consistent improvements over time.
You've hit the nail on the head.
Okay.
And that's what makes Atomic Habits such a powerful and enduring book.
Yeah.
It's not just about a quick fix. It's about a fundamental shift in mindset
Right.
and a commitment to lifelong growth.
It's about becoming the architects of our own lives.
Exactly.
Okay, but I have to ask, what if we're just feeling overwhelmed by the sheer number of habits we want to change? Where do we even start?
Yeah, that's a common challenge.
Yeah.
But remember, it's not about tackling everything at once.
Okay.
It's about focusing on one small habit at a time, mastering it, and then moving on to the next.
Okay.
It's like building a house brick by brick.
So instead of getting lost in this big vision of who we want to become, we need to break it down into those small, manageable steps.
Exactly.
Okay.
It's about identifying those keystone habits.
Right.
The ones that have that ripple effect on other areas of our lives.
So for someone who wants to be more productive, they could start by just like waking up a little bit earlier each day.
Exactly.
That could lead to more time for exercise,
Right.
maybe a healthier breakfast and a more focused workday.
It's about finding those leverage points.
Yeah.
Those small habits that can create a cascade of positive changes.
Okay, I'm starting to see the light now.
Good.
But I'm sure some of our listeners are wondering, how do we identify those keystone habits?
Yeah.
Is there a framework or process that we can use to figure out where to start?
So Clear doesn't offer like a specific formula for identifying keystone habits,
Okay.
but he does emphasize the importance of self-awareness. It's about taking the time to reflect on your values, your goals,
Okay.
and the areas where you want to see the most growth.
So we're asking ourselves,
Yeah.
what's really important to me?
Exactly.
What kind of person do I want to become?
And then identifying those small, actionable habits that align with those aspirations.
Okay.
So for some people, it might be establishing a daily exercise routine to improve their physical health.
Right.
For others, it might be dedicating 30 minutes each day to learning a new skill
Yeah.
to boost their career prospects.
It's all about making those choices
Yeah.
that are moving us towards the life we envision for ourselves.
Precisely. And remember, the beauty of the Atomic Habits framework is that it's adaptable to any goal or aspiration. Whether you're trying to improve your relationships, your finances, your creativity, or anything else,
Right.
the underlying principles remain the same.
So it's not just a self-help book. It's a blueprint for personal transformation.
That's a great way to put it.
Yeah.
It's about taking ownership of our habits and recognizing that those small, seemingly insignificant choices we make each day
Right.
have the power to shape our destiny.
This has been such an inspiring deep dive.
Yeah, it's been fun.
Atomic Habits really offer such a profound yet practical approach to personal growth.
Yeah.
But before we wrap up, I have one final question for you.
Okay.
What's one takeaway you hope our listeners walk away with today?
If there's one thing I hope you remember from our exploration of Atomic Habits, it's this.
Okay.
You don't have to wait for a grand revelation or a surge of motivation to start making changes in your life. Start small, focus on those 1% improvements, and trust that those tiny actions, when compounded over time, will lead to extraordinary results.
What a powerful reminder. It's about embracing the journey, celebrating those small wins, and trusting that consistent action will get us to where we want to be. So what's one tiny habit you can change today right now to start moving toward the person you want to be? That's something to think about as we wrap up our deep dive into Atomic Habits.